Hello and welcome everyone on behalf of the Department of Sociology. I want to warmly welcome you all to the LSE and to those of you who are online. Welcome to this very special event to mark Professor Mike Savage's retirement from the Sociology Department. Before we kick off, I just want to say a few words of introduction before then giving the floor to Mike so he can also welcome you too. So how to introduce Mike to a room of people who know him so well intellectually and personally? Clearly, it's an impossible task. I won't pretend to talk for others. Indeed, I'm really looking forward to hearing other people's reflections on Mike's impact throughout today. But I do just want to say a few words about how I see Mike as a colleague, a mentor, and a friend, which is, of course, how so many in this room know him. And here I do think Mike is a bit special. He has never been an aloof, big-name sociologist. Certainly here at LSE, my colleagues will, I'm sure, attest that he has always been a fiercely collegiate presence, not just leading the department for several years, directing the dreaded ref submission, and of course, setting up the International Inequalities Institute, but more generally, just being a dependable colleague who you knew you could always rely on to put up their hand, to contribute to the often everyday mundane labor of department life, while also in the background and in a very non-showy way, providing lots of people with support in times of crisis and when they've just needed some help. I think it's also fair to say that Mike has always been a big tent scholar. Certainly, I know I'm one of many here today who he has had a profound impact on, intellectually, of course, but also as someone who continually goes out of his way to learn about the work of emerging scholars, and then to cheerlead for them in his own forceful but unassuming way. And when it comes to his scholarship, well, I've always thought of Mike as a kind of sociologist's sociologist, relentless in his intellectual energy, tireless in his constant exploration of new subjects and new ideas, and unparalleled, in my opinion, in defining and provoking new research currents and debates for the discipline to follow. And I think we'll hear lots more in that vein today. So it's really in that spirit that the program for today has been developed. Mike didn't want this to be some sort of stale retrospective, but instead something that drew on his work to look forward, to be generative. Indeed, Mike may well have retired from the Department of Sociology, but as any of you that have interacted with him over the last year will know, he has definitively and emphatically not retired from research. In fact, I think acceleration is a more apt term than retirement. So the plan then today is that we have 4 panels that reflect 4 key themes that Mike has engaged with and which also mark, I think, energizing areas of contemporary discussion. So we'll start with British social history, we'll move to class and culture, urbanism and belonging, and then we'll end with methodological challenges and innovations. In each of these panels, leading scholars will introduce their current thinking on these areas, but will also then reflect on how their topics, their findings, their arguments draw on and engage with Mike's work in these areas. In between these 4 sessions, we'll have short 15-minute coffee breaks just outside, as well as a lunch break between 1:15 and 2:30, which will also be served outside in the foyer. The conference runs till 5:30, but I do want to remind you that today's discussions will then culminate in a special public lecture at 6:30 p.m. in the old theatre at LSE, where Mike will be joined by Michelle Lamont and Gominda Bambra to discuss inequality in the 21st century. So I hope you will join us for that too. After that finishes, there'll also be a wine reception in the Shaw Library, which is sponsored by the British Journal of Sociology, who will also be dedicating a special issue to Mike's contribution to sociology, due to be published next year. But you've heard enough from me, so I'll pass you on to the person you really want to hear from, Professor Mike Savage.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you all of you for coming today. I know many of you have come from a long way. Some people are still, I believe, on the plane arriving in Heathrow in the next hour or two. So it's, and I have to be honest, there's a degree of an ego trip about this, because I know most of you in this room from different stages of my intellectual biography, intellectual career, but many of you don't know each other, because, you know, I sort of weave in and weave out of different research communities. And so in a way, this is kind of a place where you'll renew old friendships, but also hopefully make new ones, you know, and hopefully, you know, think about collaborations between different areas of research. I do obviously want to thank very much the Department of Sociology and Susie Hall and Louisa Lawrence, who really, you know, supported this idea of a conference, and have given, and the amazing comms team, Yadna and Maddie, who really helped put this event together. There'll be more formal thanks to them later, but I just wanted to emphasize this has really been, from my point of view, very easy. It's been working with a brilliant team. So yeah, so look, I'm really looking forward. I don't have to do anything much until this evening, so I'm just looking forward to the day as it unrolls. But there is obviously a serious note. You know, this is not just a retrospective. It's not just a kind of reflection on the research I've been involved with over the years, although it'll certainly be that. But we all know in the 2025, the world is not in great shape, is it? And we see what some people call polycrises, you know, multiple overlapping inequalities, geopolitical conflicts. The world is in a difficult situation. We need, as social scientists, as scholars, as academics, we also need to be thinking about how to try and take the fight in the right direction. And I think all of us in this room share the view that we need to do what we can to pool our thinking, our networks, and our thoughts to try and to contribute to that. And I hope today, as well as the retrospective, and I, you know, as I will say in a minute, you know, I've always emphasised the long term and historical, but we also need to pool ourselves to thinking about the future, you know, and how we try and shape the world in a better place. LSE is a really important university for that, and we must be committed to this forward-looking agenda. Okay, so that's all for me from now. I'm going to introduce the first panel. To say, you know, as many of you know, I was originally an historian. You know, my undergraduate and my master's in history. Didn't imagine I would become a sociologist, to be honest. I just enjoyed history so much. And then, you know, things take a strange turn, and I realized that sociology was so exciting and made this transition. But of course, history has been always fundamental to the way I thought. And it's really, really important to me that we had this first panel to reflect upon the kind of importance of historical research. My first book, my PhD, was a study of social class, industrial change in a town called Preston in northwest England, which some of you will know, but some of you probably won't know. John Lawrence, who I've known for, I don't know, nearly 40 years. John was a doctoral student. He did his PhD on Wolverhampton, you know, and this is a moment in time when industrial towns in England had this great resonance. You know, it really seemed to matter to understand how class and gender and other kinds of inequalities were playing out in these towns as a means of unraveling the picture of social change in Britain. So it's kind of, we have moved on from that, but it's really telling that, you know, that's where I began. You know, I began in these very local studies of northwest England. As did John, well, the Midlands in this case. So John is now Professor of Modern British History at Exeter, and we've collaborated and talked over the years. So I'm going to pass over to him to introduce the first panel.